Things seem pretty tough for kids now, but was it tougher for kids in the 80s? There's a whole bunch of stuff that we have that they didn't. Many times they made their own fun. You'll be surprised just how resilient they were. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 facts showing why 80s kids are so tough. 25. Instant gratification. Kids today are spoiled with streaming services, online shopping, and other modern conveniences. Let me give you some examples you'll either find nostalgic or mind-blowing, depending on when you were born. In the 80s, you didn't binge watch shows, you had to wait for them to be shown on TV. One episode at a time, once a week. If you wanted a product, you couldn't get it the next day, and there was no obligation to sign up for an entertainment service as part of the deal. The idea of instant gratification wasn't really a thing in the 80s. You had delayed gratification instead, and it was a whole lot more satisfying once you got what you wanted. 24. No internet. List 25 is always here to help you with your fact-finding needs. However, there was a time when we weren't around, and the likes of YouTube and Google didn't exist, grabbing you all the info in seconds. When you had to actually leave your house and go to a library so you could find stuff out. Don't get me wrong, it is great that we have so much information at our fingertips, but you could say something got lost when we didn't have to work for it. And when our internet goes down, it feels like the end of the world, which is a shame because it shows how dependent we are on online activity. 23. Unsupervised play. In the 21st century, we wouldn't dream of allowing our kids to go out and play away from the family home without supervision. Some of us have trouble letting our pets out without a tracking device, never mind the kids. So the 80s looks pretty lawless, with our little ones going here, there, and everywhere without a device to call or text them on. Was this a better system? Well, you can certainly point to recent generations and highlight their lack of self-reliance. Things have certainly changed in recent decades. It's been reported that children back then spent 30 hours outside every week, something you can't say about the 2020s. For 80s kids, the worst thing that could happen was a grazed knee. Modern kids tend to struggle when their phone's confiscated. 22. Limited screen time. There was screen time in the 80s, but not in the way you think. These screens were found on an old school TV or at the video arcade. Sure, you had computers and video games, however, you were more likely to spend hours at your local arcade, and if you ran out of money, it was, well, game over. Maybe after that, you wanted to go home and watch some cartoons? Well, that was tricky also, because they only showed those on Saturday mornings. Interestingly, this made children use their imaginations more and take part in physical activities away from the TV screen. 21. Latchkey kids. Latchkey kid is an old expression, meaning a child who comes home to find no adults around. The latchkey itself was basically the lock on the door, and you were expected to let yourself in and keep busy till the grown-ups came home from work. You still get latchkey kids today, but authorities take a negative view of parents who leave their kids alone for so long. If you know a former latchkey kid, you'll be aware that some of them were happy with the arrangement, and some found it neglectful. It definitely toughened up generations of children though, no doubt about that. 20. Making up games. Long before the days of League of Legends and Fallout, kids in the 80s had their own adventures. It wasn't unusual for young people to go out in the yard and not only play a game, but invent one themselves. Teamwork really did make the dream work. This imaginative play was a lot more interactive, and sure beat asking ChatGPT for help. I mean, when was the last time you sat in an old cardboard box pretending it was a spacecraft? As a kid, I mean. If you're doing that as an adult, then you've taken that playful streak way too far. I'm just kidding. Go. Sit in... Who cares? Sit in boxes. Who cares if anyone judges you? Not hurting anyone? Sit in all the boxes you want. Pretend they're spaceships. Pretend they're transmogrifiers like Calvin. I don't care. Have fun. 19. Real friends. Nowadays, when we think of friends, we think of likes, selfies, and reels. The online world has totally eclipsed the real one, making kids hang out in chat rooms rather than parks. This has also led to kids being exposed to harmful behavior, which can scar them for life. Whatever happened in the days of real friends, when we all met up at school, at the mall, or summer camp? Instead of worrying about emojis, we were looking at the actual faces of people and interacting that way. Today's kids have gotten out of the habit of being in the moment and living most of their life on a screen. Seriously, go to a concert. And not just kids. Go to a concert. Look how many people, instead of actually sitting in the moment, are recording it for later. 18. Physical discipline. 80s kids were tough, and this toughness came at a cost. Parenting back then could be lax by today's standards, but it could also be strict. Until recently, the idea of using physical discipline on your child was accepted, and in some places it still is. You'll hear people who grow up being spanked saying it didn't do them any harm, and so they spank their own kids. Hitting a child is widely seen as bad parenting in the 21st century. Whether you appreciated the discipline or not, it was a fact of life for people growing up in the 80s. Most. I was never spanked. 17. Self-regulation. Time management isn't something you naturally think of with children. A lot of kids have trouble tidying their room, let alone doing a schedule. Thankfully, technology is here to help them along. Young people rely on apps to keep them on track throughout the day. Come to think of it, us adults do too. No wonder kids are so out of whack when it comes to organizing time. The kids of the 80s, however, had no apps and needed to regulate themselves. Telling the time and completing your chores was something you did without mobile devices reminding you. Failed to get things done, and a tongue lashing, or worse, as I mentioned before, would probably soon follow. 16. No comparison. It's no surprise kids feel less confident. This is because they're bombarded with material online, promoting unhealthy body images and unattainable lifestyles. It's something called social comparison theory. They had it in the 80s, of course, with young people wanting to style themselves like their favorite actor or singer and feeling like they didn't measure up. Go back further, however, and you'll see social comparison theory was first talked about in the 50s. The pressure has long been there, and social media has only amplified it. Comparison culture was less of an issue in the 80s because there was enough social interaction to keep you grounded. There's less of that online, which is worrying. 15. Walking to school. How do your kids get to school? Maybe you cram them on the school bus, or you drive them yourselves. Then there are other options like carpooling and outside taxi services. In the 80s, people tended not to sweat over the small stuff. It was perfectly acceptable for a child to walk to school, sometimes unattended. Today, folks are scared of what or who might be lurking out there, so they discourage traveling on foot as a thing. I get it, this does keep the children safe. I'm not saying it doesn't, but in a way, it kind of robs them of their independence, and in some cases, puts them off making decisions. Why bother if everything's being done for you, right? 14. Bringing kids together. Kids experienced a major shift in the way they consumed entertainment during the 80s. MTV was launched right at the start of the decade in 1981, showing bite-sized content which caught the imagination of young viewers. Without MTV, we wouldn't know about music videos, which became talking points on the school bus and in the schoolyard. This gave kids a lot of strength as they felt they were a part of something, similar to the way their parents felt excited about stuff going on in the 60s. As they got older, these kids turned into the legendary MTV generation and made their own mark on the world. 13. Babysitting. Babysitting seemed more relaxed in the 80s compared to the arrangements we have now. It was kind of a joke, with movies such as Adventures in Babysitting playing in theaters. This was something older children were expected to do, with the family keeping things literally in the house. Qualifications? Pfft, what qualifications? The unpaid sitters had a list of rules given to them by their parents and probably a number to call in case of an emergency. Aside from that, the responsibility for those precious kids was on their shoulders. Talk about a character-building experience. Today, babysitting is a more organized thing, with references and cross-checks needed before you make that hire. 12. Makeshift forts. Did you know that couches could be fun in the 80s? Children used them regularly for building forts. And if you don't know what a fort is, well, you might want to ask a grown-up. What? Who doesn't know what a fort? Seriously though, grabbing some couch cushions and draping a blanket over the top of them to create a hidey hole was a big deal for 80s kids. You also felt tough because, hey, you were building the fort. And that's something soldiers did. Try telling a 21st century kid to go and hide and they probably wouldn't know where to start. 11. Payphones. Well, here's something from the 80s you definitely don't see much of today. I give you the payphone. You had to operate it using physical money or cards, and the most mind-blowing part comes next. Making the call involved knowing the number, and this involved a strange thing called memorizing numbers. Yes, instead of someone's name popping up on your smartphone, you needed to have the actual digits in your mind before you could use the device. Remember that, 80s people? Well, if you didn't, you were in big trouble. The braver kids could also make free collect calls, meaning they spoke to an operator who would then ask your mom or dad to pay for the call you were making. This was never a popular move, unless it was an emergency. 10. Brown paper school books. Before the days of laptops and tablets, kids used composition books. Now, I'm not saying books have disappeared from the school system, but something happened with composition books in the 80s that would probably look strange today. Environmentally friendly, but still strange. Families recycled old grocery bags by cutting them up and turning them into makeshift book covers. This made sense at the time because it protected the soft books, plus the kids decorated the brown paper to make it look more exciting. So if you were artistic, you could have a really cool looking book. Go online and you'll see composition books for sale that are designed to resemble those handcrafted books of the past. 9. Pocket change. Many kids in the 80s sounded like slot machines. Why? Because their pockets were full of loose change, meaning they jingled and jangled their way along the street when they walked. Pocket change was your friend when going into toy shops or candy stores. It gave you satisfaction on a budget, something you can't really do these days. Imagine trying to purchase a toy with only a few coins in the 2020s. As for candy, well, you probably aren't allowed to eat it, except on special occasions. To earn the pocket change, you had to complete grueling physical tasks, such as washing cars and mowing lawns. Now that tradition hasn't died out, but things are definitely more hassle-free in the digital age. 8. Family road trips. 80s road trips had a different vibe. There weren't any screens, or rather, there were, but it was a big screen made of glass, and they called it a window. Oh my god, I'm getting very sarcastic here. Forget Candy Crush, kids played games like Punch Buggy, where you physically assaulted the person next to you when spotting a particular car. There was also the classic I Spy, among other fun stuff. The journey became an endurance test if it was a long drive, making the cries of, "Are we there yet?" even louder. If you could survive a big family road trip, then you were tough enough for anything. 7. Thick-skinned. What's your opinion on schoolyard insults? Are they a character-building experience that gives you a thick skin, or do they cause trauma and psychological damage? Well, the truth is, it's somewhere in between. Flashback to the 80s, and the attitude was you should take the abuse and carry on with your day. Many parents thought you needed to handle the situation yourself, giving you advice that wasn't always great. Others were more sensitive. Either way, insults are never nice. If you could deal with them, you probably turned out all right. No child can completely protect themselves from name-calling and petty behavior by morons who aren't cooked yet. We're certainly a lot more enlightened about how to handle these issues today. However, the online world is still a pretty cruel place for children. Look at comment sections. 6. Supportive adults. Adults in the 80s could be strict, but they could also be supportive. That involved nurturing and encouraging kids, not giving them instructions for how to live their lives. Whether they were family members, family friends, teachers, or inspirational figures in the community, supportive adults shaped lives. They helped kids to be tough without using their fists, guiding them so they could develop an inner strength. 5. Cartoon time. You may know colorful characters like Scooby-Doo and the Smurfs from the 21st century movies. If you grew up in the 80s, however, you remember how they became popular in the first place, which was on Saturday morning TV. Believe it or not, there was a time when kids got up early so they could catch the latest episode of Alvin and the Chipmunks, Masters of the Universe, and Thundercats. Obviously, streaming wasn't an option, and a box set was something you did with your cereal. It was a healthier time, with kids enjoying a limited amount of time watching cartoons before doing chores or playing outside with friends. 4. Dinner. Is it me, or does 80s food look more nutritious? We have access to recipes from around the world thanks to the internet, but the majority seems to pop a ready meal in the microwave night after night. Interestingly, while microwaves were a thing back then and junk food was popular, you also had home-cooked food that you ate with your family. From mac and cheese to meatloaf, these were meals guaranteed to fill you up quickly and affordably. And they tasted pretty great too. 3. Authority. With children becoming increasingly sophisticated through learning about the world online, you see the relationship between young people and adults changing. Parents who grew up in the 80s were taught to button it when a grown-up would tell you to button it. Respect for older people was an automatic thing, and those who talked back were seen as total rebels. Today, kids get into back and forth with adults all the time, which can be a positive thing, but not everyone sees it that way. Former 80s kids believe today's kids lack resilience and are less tough due to them feeling they can challenge authority whenever they like. I mean, what do you think? Why not send us a comment? 2. Jobs. Part-time jobs worked a little differently in the 80s. Kids didn't feel the pressure of preparing for a future career. Plus, they were entering a better job market with more opportunities. Not like today, where you're considered lucky to have a job at any age. Kids had more time to grow up and develop, though they also went into these roles at a younger age. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depends on your point of view. Jobs make people tough now, of course, but back then, you were out on your own and needed to rely on your wits. 1. Clean your plate. In the 21st century, being asked to clean your plate means putting it in the dishwasher. You also probably left some food on the plate, which can be scraped in the trash before you stick it in there. Now, I'm not saying they didn't have leftovers in the 80s, but the majority of kids had to clean their plate using a knife and fork, plus their mouths. Not eating something was not an option. How many of those kids went on to eat more efficiently as adults, and how many teach their own children to clean their plate? Quite a few, I'm guessing. Well, hopefully you enjoyed our nostalgic look back at a golden era. Did we get it right? Let us know. And let's see, actually, speaking of letting us know, let's see if you can get our final question before you go. Which of these classic 80s cartoons only ran for one season? Was it A, Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light, B, The Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, C, Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats, or D, Rambo, The Force of Freedom? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you're fed up with reminiscing and want some nostalgia-free facts that'll get you talking, well, we have a video all about that right here. And as always, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content. Check out our social medias, check out my social medias, and I just want to say about everything I said earlier, balance is key. That's it. So, I'll catch you guys later.